Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we have a special guest, Jennifer Lessard. She is a naturopathic practitioner and she really specializes in detox of all different body systems and just so incredibly knowledgeable. So I'm so excited to chat today. I know we're going to probably have lots of chats because we could probably talk for hours and hours. Um, so Jennifer, how did you like get into this realm of, because it is once it's like a big rabbit hole, and once you start, it becomes like, what you find one thing and then you move to the next. But how did you get started, in this?
It is so true. Once you start learning about what your body does and how you can start facilitating your own healing, it takes you down rabbit holes that you can find unimaginable. So I probably started this about 15 years ago, really starting to take a look at our healthcare system and what it was really doing for us, for myself, for my husband. And then when we started our family, how was that working out for us? I wasn't able to get pregnant, having miscarriages after miscarriages, and having cancers growing in my system, and then basically saying you're not going to have children on your own. It was devastating. So it kind of opened my eyes to saying, okay, what's going on and what's happening in our world? What are we consuming? And I didn't even know what the questions were that I wanted to ask, because there's just so much negative happening in my system, but nobody could answer. Medical professions were just throwing medications, supplements, getting IV treatments, and nothing was changing. So started that rabbit hole. And my husband and I decided to get on a list for adoption. So we were like, this is great. We're not going to be able to have our own kids, but maybe we'll do it another way. Well, then we got pregnant once we were on the list. But it was after the fact of having chemotherapy. So thinking to myself, my body is going to be so filled with toxins, like I'm not going to be able to grow this child inside of me. It's just, I'm set up for doom kind of situation. My pregnancy was pretty gnarly, like sickness. It could be similar to a normal pregnancy, but I didn't know, because it was my first time really being pregnant to this extent where, my body was still holding on to this baby. She ended up coming early, so that was kind of scary. And I'm thinking to myself, are we going to have all these issues in this child? And unfortunately, those dreams came true. My child was premature. She had gut issues. She was allergic to everything, and we didn't know. So we're still trying to breastfeed. I was not one of those moms that was lucky enough to have all my breast milk come in. So we had to supplement with formula, and not knowing, and then throw all those vaccines in there, trusting my pediatrician and thinking we're doing the right thing for my child. So it was a rough first 2 years with her. I can't even recall most of the first year. There was so much trauma with her, and that colic crying baby all the time. So, and then she was vaccine injured. 15 months old, she had the MMR, and my child broke out in a full body rash, seizures, and flailing on the ground. We were in a public setting. People parted like the Red Sea, and nobody wanted to help me and my child. Spiked the temperature of 105, and she had seizures. I want to say she had maybe about 5 seizures in grand total from that experience. Pediatrician said, oh, she just has a virus. No big deal. From that point, though, started researching what vaccines and what were in the vaccines. Spoke to the pediatrician, but I still didn't have a no. So I didn't understand still. So we spaced out all her vaccines. Okay. So, making sure that maybe she wouldn't have these reactions if this was what was causing it. She seemed to have done okay with what the pediatrician had agreed with us to the spacing until she was 6 and had to have that MMR again. And we were supposed to split it. But by that time, the government said, nope, we're just keeping them in the 3s, because at one point you could split and do one at a time. And
Yes.
now we're like, it's one and that's it. So she had it, and she had the same reaction. So I said, this is it. I was like, there's something in the vaccines within her system. I didn't know yet either, but what is creating this reaction? So we stopped right then and there vaccinating. I started to find a naturopath or somebody else who could take care of, you know, the wellness visits, all of that stuff. Fast forward, wellness visits, we don't even do wellness visits. It's just not something we need. But again, when you're still learning and you're a new mom and you're trying to figure all this stuff out, you're part of the agenda of what we're supposed to do. So
Absolutely.
breaking away from that was definitely not easy. And then my husband's like, what are you doing? No, we need doctors. Like, but do we? I mean, and I'm not downgrading a doctor by any means, because I think I said something one time when I was talking to a group, and the comment was something with doctors. And I guess I have to be specific to say doctors, I don't think get into the profession of being a doctor to harm people. Now, I'm
No, I
pretty
agree.
sure that's not their ways, but what they're taught in school and or lack of being taught portrays when it comes to taking care of somebody and trying to whatever their version of heal is. And within the medical industry, and it's only my opinion, there isn't really a heal. It's just a chronic state that someone's in, and you're just trying to make them comfortable. You bandage the situation of what's happening, and there's no real like light at the end of the tunnel where there's some real healing happening. Does that happen to everybody? No. But for the majority of people, yes. If you're on a medication, you're not healing. You're just bandaging the effects of what's happening in the system. So we're not really getting to the root cause. So that kind of triggered a light bulb effect and said, wait a minute, we're not really fixing things. We're just bandaging them. So how do we get to the root causes of things? And then this kind of exploded and took me down that rabbit hole of how do we heal? Who heals us? What heals us kind of thing. I mean, so it's been, my daughter is going to be 15. So it's been 15 years of really looking into this, especially with her, because we came up with some struggles and some traumas that have happened with her. And she ended up at the age of 7 with Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism, TEDS, and a heart condition.
Oh my gosh.
So that threw us in this massive, like, what is happening now? You know, I'm not hadn't been vaccinating anymore. Like, what is food choices have changed. We are really starting to like become more aware of our bodies and what are we putting on our bodies? I mean, questioning everything to the point of it's so overwhelming. And I said, how are people doing this? I couldn't find somebody to do this with me. So this again said, oh my gosh, there's maybe a market for this, so that somebody who's like me, who needs that assistance to be able to get those questions answered and understand, wow, maybe this is something I can look into, and what do I need to do? So that started me with, how do you do this? Getting certifications. I'm continuing my certifications. I feel like there's just so much information and it's ever evolving that I need to stay on top. So it's not just like, boom, oh, I'm certified as a naturopathic practitioner, a holistic health coach. I do nutrition work, and detox specialist. Oh, so, you know, that's good. You don't have to do any more education. Well, no, I mean, doctors still technically have to do education and constantly trying to be up with what's happening. But I personally feel when it's in this realm of type of work, it's a little bit more different, because it's really focusing on the human body and the detoxing and learning about the anatomy of how our systems work and finding that root cause. And a lot of people, you can't find the root cause because you can't trace things back, because it goes in that generational state from,
Right.
you know, so how do you know exactly what you've been delivered in your system? And it's now where we focus on, well, what's being put in your system that we can have a little bit better control of and try to mitigate everything as a whole once we really have a good baseline of
Right.
what's
And
in our systems.
I think that's like, it is so complicated. Like because once you do go into the rabbit hole of holistic health and detoxing, it is like overwhelming, the amount of information. And it's so easy to get confused by, we were just saying, people on social media that claim to be experts. How much training have they really had? Or did they catch a soundbite and just regurgitate it to you? But they have 2 million followers, so must be true, right? So it is so complicated. But I think like that's such an amazing story about your daughter too. I didn't know all of that. But you know, it always goes back to like, it's causing inflammation in the body, whether it came from the vaccine, whether it came from something in the water, something you're putting on your skin, something that you're eating in your food. There's something that is making your body like fight itself. And
Absolutely.
that, I think, is the root of all disease. It manifests in different ways. And some people, it might be Graves' disease or cancer, or it might be they can't get pregnant. But the root cause always comes back to the gut, and it always comes back to inflammation, right?
Always. The gut is the second brain of the body. And what happens with inflammation is you've got your cell, and your cell is, it's not this nice round thing. It's kind of crinkly looking, and that's your inflammation. And then when you're trying to get nutrients into the cell, because it's inflamed, it can't go in. And what it's inflamed with is the toxins, and the toxins can't come out. So that's where we need to start. We need to focus on flushing the system, getting that inflammation down, because the blood is where it all starts. And if your blood isn't clear, if it isn't clean, then how do you expect to go and take $500 a month worth of supplements and you don't see a change in your system? You may see something, you may feel different, your brain fog might be a little less, or your joint pain might be a little less, but ultimately you're never really going to get that optimal heal because you're so inflamed still. So people start with all these products and taking, again, because you've got a person who says, oh my gosh, I've taken this is what it's done for me, kind of deal. Or the thing that just irks me is when you are, I've been a part of many MLM companies with products, but I always look for the products that have the transparency, that have the COAs, that have the good products that, well, what are you putting in them? I want to know. I'm an ingredient detective. I want to know what's in that product. Where is it derived from? I don't want it coming from a lab. Where are you getting most of your products now? Mostly from labs, because where are these good companies that offer that whole food type of product that is going to be simplified for the system to be able to utilize? So,
That's so key too. And I had made that mistake. And I think probably after I had met you, I had really stopped a lot of the supplements. But for so long, I really thought, wow, I'm doing such a good job. I'm putting all these great things into my body. And, but like you said, if it's coming from a lab, how much of it can my body utilize?
yeah,
Right? How much is it actually helping?
right. And then you're just throwing all this money away, and people are becoming poor because they're trying to keep themselves healthy, and they're not getting healthy, and they're still poor because they're spending all this money on products. So it's about educating people on the products and on the ingredients, and it's about us asking those questions. What is this? What is this ingredient? What does this do? An ingredient has 4 or 5 different names these days, and they all still mean the same in what it does. But if you don't know what it is and you're putting in your system, you should be questioning that. If you don't know what it is, you shouldn't be putting it in your mouth. You shouldn't be swallowing it. I mean, if you think about the digestive system, and like it's that second brain, how that digestive system works is, we all have to start with our fingers. Our fingertips have sensors on them. They trigger the brain. The brain then triggers the stomach, gets those acids going. The salivary glands are doing what they need to do. You miss this whole section here when you're eating with a fork or a spoon. You need to wake up the system. You don't wake it up, then it can't do its job. And then what happens is, and it goes off into this whole other tangent of your food choices and what we're pairing together, what goes in the system, because what's going to sit in the system and ferment, what's going to start putrefying in the system. So then that slows digestion down. If your acids aren't up to par, that's going to slow your digestion down. So it's creating the right eating patterns for your system at the right times so that the body can use it. We should be pooping 5 to 6 times a day. People get mind blown, like, what? 5 to 6 times a day? Yes, my family poops 5 to 6 times every single day. You're putting it in. It needs to be coming out because you don't utilize everything. We overeat as humans. It's what we've been taught. It's like the good life. What else do we have to live for if you're not eating? Well, now we mindful of what are we eating. We're so inundated with toxins and chemicals and metals, and our soils are depleted, so we're not getting the nutrients and the vitamins anymore. So where are we going to get that from? So then here we go, supplementation. Well, supplementation, big pharma is a big part of all these supplement companies now. So you don't people don't realize that it's not just big pharmacy that's, prescription from a doctor. You're still getting this stuff from your local stores, your Walmarts and CVS's and all of those. I mean, are the CVS's even around anymore? Like,
They are.
there's so many
We have them.
businesses, I can't keep track.
Yep.
Where we live, we're limited. So, and it's hard, and people are buying stuff on Amazon now, and Amazon is one of the worst. Well, I can't say the worst, because you can find some really good stuff there if you find true companies that are selling their stuff, but there's a lot of scammers out there. They're taking products from other people, they're marketing it the same way, but they're giving you something that's not what you're really supposed to be getting. There's one guy who has made videos like, please don't buy this product unless it's directly through me, because there's 10 other people that's selling his product, because they've created the same thing, same labels, but it's not his product. So people have to be mindful. You get what you pay for. And when things are super inexpensive, you might want to question the quality of the product. And if you're not reading labels, you should start. And there's a couple of good apps. Bobby Approves is a really good app. I think it's Bobby's Approve. Yeah. And he created an app so that you can scan whatever it is, and it will give you a breakdown of the ingredients. And if there's something in whatever you're scanning they haven't researched, they're going to research it for you. And it doesn't cost.
Amazing.
It doesn't cost for you to have the app, and it's kind of like, you don't have to do the work. You take the guesswork out of it.
There was an app called Think Dirty, but that was more, I think, for like shelf products, like, household cleaners and things like that. But yeah, that was a good one too. And I haven't used it in a while. But once you get good at reading labels, you don't always have to go to the app, because know what shouldn't be there.
Oh yeah. My 7-year-old can pick up a package and she'll read 3 ingredients in and be like, nope, and put it right back on the shelf.
That's amazing.
So,
so you said so many things there. And I know for most parents, it's just so overwhelming to be like, okay, so there's no nutrients in the soil, so we can't take the supplements, so we have to eat this, but my kid won't eat that. It's just like a very overwhelming. So a lot of times they just throw their hands up and go, I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, because nothing's wrong yet. And I don't know what else to do, because it's just too much and I can't be the one to research everything. So like, I know what I would say, but I'm not you. I'm not the professional, but I always start with, okay, why don't we get a gut test? Especially with our picky eaters. I always like to, especially if there's any suspicion, although we just had a client recently that there were really minimal red flags, and her celiac numbers ended up being crazy. And that totally shocked me. And I was like, maybe we should check every single person for a gut test, because you don't want to miss that, because if you miss a gut issue, and it's hard, I don't want to assume that everybody has a gut issue, but with today's society, it's like, there's gotta be some level of inflammation in their body. But where do parents start? I say gut test, like a good one, not a GI doctor. Maybe you can explain why they're different, but they are very different, what your GI doctor can give you, and a functional like gut test from someone like you that studies nutrition.
Right. Well, and the thing with the GI doctors, and I can't speak for them because I'm not a GI specialist when it comes to that, but their main focus is they're going to have you come into the office. They're going to want to scope you. They want to go internally and visually see what's happening. A lot of times they might take a sample of something, but what they're taking isn't really covering much. If they're doing poop samples, I don't know what they're exactly testing for, but from clients that have had come in to see me, they're not testing for the things that you as a parent might not even know. But if you're doing research and looking things up online and saying, okay, well, how come they didn't test for this? Again, I can't speak for why they are not doing the testing like that. I can only speculate. And, that makes me a conspiracy theorist in a sense. When you talk about it's about money, and it's about keeping us sick, essentially.
We 100%. I say that all the time.
we offer gut testing because you need a baseline. You need to know what's happening. And should we have gut testing? Absolutely. Especially with food changing in our habits of eating. With kids who are picky eaters, you want to know what's in their system, because if we don't have diversity, then you're not going to have diversity in your system either. So then the gut growth that we have growing in there, we need to make sure that we're feeding the proper ones And even the bad ones are meant to be there, but when we overfeed the bad ones, then that's when we get out of balance, and then that's when issues will start arising. And this is when you'll start to see issues with rashes. And most people will say, maybe my kids aren't like this, I don't see this, but then you notice they have red cheeks, or after they're eating they're doing this, or they're rubbing their eyes, or they have little spots on the back of their arms or on
Yep.
their legs. So
Or the dark circles
the
under their
dark circles,
eyes.
absolutely. So there
Mhm.
are so many indicators, and I can tell you, because of my clients and coming in, there is not one person who doesn't have a gut issue. There can't be. We live in a society of a toxic soup. We are exposed to so much, from the clothes we put on our body, then the lotions and anything we apply to our system, anything we're putting in our mouths. I mean, wearing jewelry, everything. If wearing a pair of glasses, it's plastic, it's sitting on my face. There's particles that are going into my skin. Your skin is the biggest organ that absorbs everything. So we can make that assessment to say that we all have some sort of issue. There's no perfect detox either to get everything out of our systems. And then you start adding on your food supply that is going in, that's covered in all these pesticides and herbicides and chemicals and glyphosate that are coming up from this, that, and everything. I mean, people don't even understand that that is in your vitamins as well, all of that stuff. So you're thinking, we're taking this supplement. Oh, great. I'm avoiding from, I'm doing a multivitamin, so I don't have to eat this food anymore, because maybe you were like, well, it grows in the ground and I'm not getting the nutrients. Okay. But now what are you getting in that supplement? It just, these things we can go off on so many tangents. It's
Yeah.
wild, and we can talk for days, months. It's wild, but gut is where we need to start. The inflammation, we need to get into the blood cells. We need to make sure that we're cleaning our systems. We're doing it on a cellular level, and then we're able to get into that gut and really start balancing what's happening in there. And our foods play a huge trigger, because the foods is what we're putting in. It's, we're breathing in things and we're touching things, but the food is what's going through that system, and then it's clogging up the pipes. And
Right.
then we're getting the constipation, we're getting the SIBO, we're getting the diverticulitis, all these other issues that are happening within our gut system. And now the constipation is happening. So now the lymphatic system is becoming drained, and we're not functioning properly. So it's a domino effect, and it's the same cycle, just can be rooted from something a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. And I always say, like, it's such an investment in your future health, because just because you don't see, those issues that you just listed now, maybe your child just, they're just a picky eater now, and everything else seems, fine, and they're otherwise happy and healthy. But at some point, it will catch up to you.
Absolutely.
And that lack of gut diversity, the inflammation from eating, just straight Cheerios and goldfish, it will eventually catch up to you and manifest as something in the future. I can't tell you what it will manifest as, but something will come. So yeah, that's why we always start with, let's take a look at the gut. And then do you have any like easy things that you could tell parents to start with that or avoid to help start to balance the gut? Maybe before they do a gut test, or if they just don't have the funds to do that right now, like what are some things that they can maybe do?
So I always, when I'm with people, and it's kind of the same thing, is this something that's really necessary for me to do? And I look at it as this: we spend the money on the things that we want to in life, because that's what you work for, right? Well, what's the harm in trying to save a little bit of money to be able to get a test to see where our bodies are in check? You buy your kid whatever snacks. Maybe you kind of say, okay, we're not going to buy these snacks today. That money is going to go towards getting you a gut sample, kind of thing. Is it realistic in most instances for people? Probably not. But you buy coffee. Do you really need to get coffee outside at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks? Yes, it's a luxury for people. I don't drink that stuff. We've never have. There's too many toxins, myotoxins. I mean, that's a whole other topic to talk about. So you have to be mindful within yourself and what's important to you. And if your health is important to you, and I'm not saying it's not to some people, but some people don't put that as a priority or first. But when I see clients, it means that something's wrong, or they know something's happening and it's time to make some changes. So a family has to want to know, I guess. You
Yeah.
can't really, I mean, you can't really just say, hey, these are some ways to kind of avoid things, because it's a whole collaborative of things. But for gut healing and whatnot with kids, dyes, take the dyes out of the food. Take, I mean, there's the dirty list of foods. Ritz crackers, goldfishies are on that list. You don't want to be giving your children those things. There are healthy alternatives. But then we get into healthy alternatives. Again, another whole topic to talk about. Cassava flour is in everything that's like gluten-free, grain-free. Well, what does cassava flour do to the stomach and the gut system long term? There's still no definitive answers yet, but it does cause bloating and it can cause stomach upset. So how do we know? And cassava is one of those deep-rooted vegetables. So what do you think that's getting covered in? Glycolate. So now you're putting that in your system. So now you're healthy, you're doing all these awesome things for your system, and you're eating this chip because you can't have the other ones, and you're still loading yourself up with some more toxins. So it's
Right.
kind of like we don't live in a perfect world, so we're never going to not be around them, but it's about managing, it's about making choices, but being grace over guilt, and it's about being able to do the proper detoxing, so that way you can enjoy stuff in your life, but you know you have to make some changes to be able to get that stuff out of the system as well. So
Right. I think that's such an important point because yeah, it is. And it is so overwhelming. So a lot of people think, well, I guess I'll just not do anything. I'll just keep it as is. But I think the knowledge is so powerful because if you know, okay, like I really shouldn't be having this, but we're on vacation, we're at a part, like I'm not going to be able to do anything about this. But I do know on the back end that what it can do to my system. And I have this detox protocol because I went through this process and I could do something positive to help mitigate those effects. That I think is so powerful because then at least you have a plan, like it's not like, well, I'm just helpless and I'm just here on this planet and whatever's going to kill me is going to kill me. It's like, okay, I know it's not the best, but here's what I can do about it.
agreed. Absolutely. It's not easy. I haven't just, dove into this in the last year. It's taking me 15 years to get to the point where I'm at, and making the changes. And we don't live a normal lifestyle as many people do. You come into our home, it's a sacred space because of how I've implemented everything to keep myself as healthy as I can and my children, to what we can do for our systems and how we detox. So it's a lot of work. It
Yeah,
stinks that it has
it
to
is
be a
work.
lot of work. It really does, because life, you should have some sort of like, easy button. We should be able to do our job, work, and, pay our bills and eat good foods. And the government doesn't have that in our best interest.
Right.
And they haven't for some time. So now we have to fend for ourselves, and we need to educate ourselves and help educate others. And you'll get a lot of people who will shut down from all of this and say what you're saying is not true, or the government isn't out for us. And okay, but do your own education then. And that's what I promote. I help people by facilitating healing. I'm not the healer. You as the individual are the healer. Now, when you have children, your child is not the healer because your child isn't aware, and subconsciously, usually they're a child. So you are the facilitator for your children, essentially. But that is my goal, is the facilitating is to help educate the individual, to give the best route for them to be able to do what's comfortable for their systems the best way I know how, to teaching them and educating them, so that I can send them off and say, you've done it, and then come back and touch base in a year or something, or 6 months or whatever, when you feel like you need a little refresher, and we can kind of go over everything. I don't want to see people forever. It's not part of how my practice runs. I want to get you at your worst, I guess, or not even your worst. You're having issues and you're realizing, but then we want to go from this side of being bad to, oh my gosh, we're moving in the right direction to healing, to getting your system in check. And I have really great friends that are practicing these ways because they see what I'm doing. And I have this one girl, and I'm so proud of her because she's making these choices consciously. She's seeing what me and my family do. She messages me, and I'm just like blown away by how much effort she's already putting into healing herself and working on her family as well. And it's not an easy task by any
Yeah.
means. And when it's not just you're taking care of, it's other people, it makes it that much more daunting and time consuming. And, how do you do this? And we have the generation of kids right now that are, going to be living in some pretty crazy times. So I want to educate as much as I can so that they can make the right decisions and know that their food just doesn't come from a grocery store. Where does this meat come from? Where do these products come from? And how are things made? And making our own things, and as much as we can, getting, away from the traditions and the norms.
Yeah, I know that is so hard. I'm for sure the black sheep in my family and friend group. I've been for probably over 10 years the weird one that, says, well, I'm only going to be drinking this type of water today. Like I'm ordering this special water and I'm getting the looks of, oh, here she goes again. Or, well, I'm not going to have that.
The special water.
Yep.
Yep.
So I totally understand, but it is for sure the harder road. It's not the easy way is just to keep cruising along, buy whatever you want at the store, eat whatever you want, buy whatever Bath and Body Works. I was up there with the best of them, just like you were. I was a McDonald's girl. I had Bath and Body Works. I had all of the things. Now, oh my goodness, I would never, but that only came from education. And I feel the same way that you do, that, that's why I really am gravitating more now towards parent coaching, because I want the parents to be the expert in their kids' food and their kids' eating. It shouldn't be me. It shouldn't be people on social media.
Yeah.
You have to learn to be the expert, but they have to want to be that person. And that is the hardest thing to convince people of, is that you should be the expert yourself. And because it's been fed to us for a long time, it has to be outsourced. You have to go to this doctor for this and this therapist for this. And, this, practitioner but you can become educated and you can be your own healer. And I think that's really going to be the way of the future, honestly.
I agree. Absolutely. We do need facilitators to help, because there are just some people who can't do the work or don't have the time, and that's okay. And then that's why
we facilitate, but they still have to, there's something on their end that they have to make those choices. They have to take some sort of steps on their own. We can't
before something detrimental happens. It usually sometimes ends up where something is so bad, where the sickness is so far, and now they're like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? So it's like, we really want to start in the infantile stages, because now when you think about it, where we are in our age, it's taking us how many years to get to where we are, and with our health, it's that onion peeling. So there's so many layers to undo in our own systems. When you start with children, they're younger, they haven't been exposed to as much as we have. So it's a little bit easier to control and manage. But again, it has to be a want that a parent is ready to do. And I mean, I see lots of clients who come in and they have full body facial rashes. I mean, it's so sad because of what's happening in the system and what they're exposed to. And another story, my now 7-year-old, when she was 2, she had full body explosions of rashes, and they would turn into pus pockets and they would break on her face, and couldn't figure out what was happening to my child. And having all of the testing done and showing all the allergies, it wasn't the allergies that were creating these issues within her system, though. The allergies are just because the bucket's overflowing, the system can't handle the inflammation anymore. So it doesn't matter what you're putting in, you're going to have a reaction to everything. And then that skews so it skews your results in testing, because your system is so inflamed. It doesn't matter. So we found out we had mold, and mold toxicity is real. And she was mold poisoned. And once we were able to get her gut in check, and it took 3 years. I mean, I can share pictures so people can see what she looked like, and before and afters. Like, you wouldn't your heart breaks when you see a picture of a child that's in that much pain. And my kid was not vaccinated. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, how is this happening? She is my cleanest, never Western medicine touched. What is happening? How is this happening to her? But again, we also have to remember it's the generational of what she's been exposed to from me and my husband and the 4 generations behind us. So, okay, that plays a role, but what else is happening? And then once we figured that out, we made big changes. We moved from our first location that had mold, moved into a second location that had mold, had to do a whole renovation and drop it, and found all the mold, and now segregated the spaces so that way, and not everybody can go off and just do this and build a new home. But we made sure that we put a buffer room, which is the bathroom, in between the walls. So that way there's where the electricity is coming in, because electricity allows for mold growth to happen. Again, that's something else people need to research. So look on your walls. And if you're, we have moisture everywhere. So mold is growing no matter where we are. It's part of life. It's fungus, it grows. But, when you start getting into that black mold, that creates other issues. So,
Oh my God.
see
That's
another
so,
tangent we can go
I've
off
heard of
on.
mold, like complete horror stories too. Of
But
it
then,
just destroys people's lives. It's
it
so
does.
wild.
But the problem with mold is most people don't know all of your supplementations are growing in mold, in black mold. Your corn is GMO. That's what they're using to pull with citric acid. People will say, no, that's just somebody's, again, a story you saw or think. No, I have worked with labs and called companies, and where they're deriving, your citric acids from all your acid lines. If you don't know exactly where they're coming from, people think citric is citrus. No, it's not in all instances. So it's not just mold that's growing on your walls and in your ceilings and, on the ground. It's in your system because you're putting these products in your system, and now we're infecting ourselves with mold as well. So that's a whole, there's a whole avenue with that one.
Oh my God. I know. We're going to have to talk about that another time. That's so scary though, too. But I'd rather know than not know,
Right.
because once you know, you can do something about it. But if you don't know, then you're just going to be a victim, right?
Absolutely.
So you could either be the victim or you could be educated and make a plan. That's how I see the choices here. But I know I think the same thing about our picky eaters too, because they're a lot of times we get, like, I don't know if it was recently, someone said, oh, and now we just found out they're allergic. There's some sort of new allergic reaction to this new food that never was. And I was like, that seems very suspicious. And that made me think, I think there's just so much inflammation, because that doesn't sound right. That all of a sudden a bunch of new allergies have just cropped up. And I was like, it might be what you said. That's why it's so good to get to the root of the testing, so that you know exactly what we should be putting into your system and what needs to be taken out. So we have to take out the bad, put in the good to help the body heal itself. Because the body, I'm sure you know this, but the body's fully capable of healing itself. And we just have to take out the bad so that there isn't anything inhibiting it, and then put in the good, give it what it needs, what's missing. And that's when the miracles happen, right? That's when, like, all of a sudden they're like, wow, things are really turning around. They're just, and all of a sudden some of those fears start to drop about food. But, their bodies, I think, get very defensive about food, because there's this like unconscious or subconscious association between things are going in and I'm not feeling good. And it might start at a very surface level for kids. And then, I think some kids, it becomes their norm and they don't know how to feel any different. They just assume that they're feeling okay. But, if you were to step into their body, you would be like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? I feel terrible. But that just becomes their new normal. So it happens so gradually that they don't realize that this inflammation is just causing so many problems. And I bet there's tons of adults that have that same issue, that they just, I'm just tired in the morning. I just need coffee, just like everybody else. I'm just tired. Well, maybe not. Maybe, there's something in your system that shouldn't be there. There's probably a lot of inflammation. And when you take it out, oh my gosh, it's like a miracle. I have all this energy.
Yeah.
It's like,
And that's
no,
it.
it's like your system was clogged.
Yeah. And that's the problem today is everybody just thinks that sickness is the new norm. They don't know any different because they haven't felt not sick. And whatever that sick is, it's different for everybody. And children have no idea because what can they don't know how to convey the questions or ask, or they haven't been here long enough to understand what feels good versus what isn't feeling good. And especially if
or what's normal or not normal.
Right.
Like, well, I don't know. I just always am like this. So this must be what normal is, right?
Exactly. Yep. And then that becomes hard because then you're stuck with, well, this is how it is and who I am. And then that opens up a whole other avenue of depression and so many other mental health things that come alongside with that. So it's a vicious snowball effect that happens within our systems. So cleaning the gut and making sure that our gut system is running is very important, and making sure that our lymph system works. And most people are stagnant. Their systems don't run right. If you're not pooping regularly, it's not running right. Everybody should be pooping a minimum of 1 time a day. Depends on how many times you eat. You should be pooping after every meal, and it should come on within 20 minutes of eating. It should be ready to flush. Your body utilizes and it goes when your whole system is in check. And I know this because I have kids that do this, and myself, I can eat a meal and then, it can take longer depending on what you're eating, depends on how much you chew your food. So it's that process of going down into the system, making sure those acids are doing their thing. And it all is a whole function of work. And the body gets pauses because of where we're having issues or inflammation. And when you get enough pauses, then your stuff doesn't work right. And we want our stuff to work right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think parents, I think everybody should work with you or with someone like you and Jennifer. So how can parents start this process and get learning about their guts and what their next step should be? Because it's really hard to, you could just learn from influencers and whatever, but that's very general, and everyone's system is so like a fingerprint, so unique that just telling somebody just take this probiotic or this supplement is not going to yield the best results because it's not right for your system. So how can parents start, or for themselves and for their children, how could they start this process of making sure that their gut is as good as it can possibly be?
First thing is people really need to just look at what they're eating and consuming, what they're putting in their bodies. Removing sugar is a big deal. If you can avoid sugar as much as possible, there are other alternatives that are healthier. Maple syrup, it comes in the syrup form. It comes in a powder form. Date sugar, date syrup. So they're derived from the actual whole food sources, and then your body can utilize it and knows what to do with it. Sugar, our bodies need sugar. Our cells need sugar, but it needs the right form of sugar. In your fruits, it needs the right form. You're putting fruit in your body breaks down fruits on different levels. So your fastest and detoxing fruits are like your grapes. That's like one of the best things to put in your system. Your system utilizes it very quickly. It helps with the lymphatic system. They're great detoxers. Then you go and move into your melons. You want to eat your melons together. They're really great at breaking down together. You want to eat your citrus fruits together. You want to eat your berries together. You want to eat bananas always alone. You can do bananas and dates together because they take a lot longer to digest. So what happens when you put a banana and pair it with other fruits, it slows the digestion process down. So then what happens? That slows down. Fermentation happens.
This is what I mean. You know so many things.
When fermentation happens in the gut, well, then you can have candida growth, and most people have candida. So what does that mean for them? They're getting overgrowth. How can you tell if you have candida? There's a lot of different ways to tell about candida growth in the system. First off, I've noticed with clients is you can have a really weird smell on your forehead. So, not your forehead, in their scalp line. So it's almost like cradle cap too. That is an overabundance of candida in the system. You can have a white coating on your tongue. You can have very smelling sweet breath. I mean, even from the standpoint of women, you can have a lot of discharge that happens. And that's just overgrowth of candida in the system. So it's over fermentation. So it's so hard because then you've got these kombucha lovers and like, let's eat a ton of fermented foods. It all has a time and a place. You just can't start shoving that stuff in your system if you don't know where your system first is. I mean, that's where we come into play with doing, you need to have a test. You need to have a test that's going to show your gut what's happening. It's going to see all the good and the bad bacteria. It's going to check out your ecosystem. And then we can focus on where we need to, okay, this is what's happening because of X, Y, and Z. And when you do a gut test, though, when you've got an issue that does show in the system, it's going to put a bunch of red flags up on a lot of different areas because we're out of balance. So once we get our system in check and balance, which there are some easy steps we can do once we have a test. I don't like to go blindly on people and just start making recommendations because you really need to have a baseline. You just have to have a baseline. So you know what we're looking for, what we need to pull away from, what we need to focus on. And then there are a few products that I definitely keep in our arsenal. My own family takes, it's recommended for my clients. I mean, I'm not a doctor to write a prescription and say, this is what you need. I'm going to give you recommendations. And if you want to take them, you can, but I'm not going to force somebody, but I also can't give you a recommendation. And then you go off and you're like, well, somebody said I should do this. Well, then do what you need to do. But these recommendations are here because of this is what I know has worked and is working.
Right. And I think the thing about you is you research and you call the companies and you know what's in them. So I know I always really trust your judgment on if it's a good product or not, because you don't recommend anything unless you have done that intense research that I don't even, I wasn't even able to do. You know so much more about those products than I ever did. And I thought I had researched them. But I didn't call the companies and ask those specific questions. You knew what to ask. So, so how can parents start to work with you and get the plan going for them?
Okay, so we're kind of so laid back, we're not up to the times, as I'm reminded from some people, because I like to have that personal one-on-one with my clients until the point that I am so busy and can't, then maybe something will change, but I try, and it consumes me, and my clients do, because I make time to be as available as I can. So I'm not your norm, I guess, where you go online and you book your appointment. We still are kind of old school. You can call or you can book through email with us, and you're gonna get myself or you're gonna get my assistant, and we're still small. I'm not sure how big I want to grow, because I really still like that one-on-one and working with people so directly. In time, it may change. We have other avenues that we're doing as well. So within the healthcare industry of holistic care and whatnot. So I know things will start changing, but people can contact us through email is kind of the best way to get us, because a lot of times, I'm in with clients and whatnot. So you're going to get a voicemail, but it's easy to shoot an email to excellhealing@gmail.com. It's EXCELL and then healing. And then just state who you are, where you heard of me, or, if it's here. I like to offer a little bit of a % off when it comes to doing a protocol. When people are like, oh, I saw your podcast, or, if I'm working directly with you, with your clients kind of thing, we offer a little bit of a break because it's referral based and whatnot. But and then it's building the relationship with the parents or with the person that we are working with, and kind of going from there and seeing what they're looking for and if we're even a right fit. I still can make recommendations to people. They have contact with me through email, so that if you've got questions and we don't have an appointment, I'm not going to be opposed to not giving information, as long as it's not overutilized. I always ask for that respect from my clients, but it's basically reaching out through email, calling us, getting in for an appointment, and kind of going from there. We have package deals where we offer the gut testing or any other testing, like we do the myotoxin testing. We do all your regular panels, so we can just get baselines of where you're at. So that way, when we get your results and we go over them, and then we can make the right recommendations for like the protocols that you might need.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really helpful. And that's really what people need. I feel like that's what you would want your doctor to be doing. They just don't have the knowledge or the capacity or the time to do it, unfortunately. But
And they
that's
charge a
really,
lot of money for you to only have like this little increment of time, where my appointments run 30 minutes to sometimes an hour and a half, depending on the individual. I can't put a person who's got all of these health issues and gut issues, in a slot for 30 minutes. And I mean, you have to take the time. And if I go over, as long as the way we schedule is so there's enough buffer in between our times, because again, we don't know where we're going to be at with conversation. And even sometimes clients that I see in person too, we make sure we have enough time so you don't feel rushed and you feel like you're getting the care that you're paying for, because you got to pay for the service. You can't get everything for free. And it's taken a big transition for our company to do that, because I was in the beginning just this unlimited encyclopedia source. And I go through messages and emails daily, 50 to 100 of people just still asking for free advice. And as much I have a website, we have a Facebook page, my advice is on my web page for free, trying to do that. What are we trying to work on next?
And the Facebook group too, that's a good place to get information as well.
Yeah, we definitely, in the Facebook group, I share a lot of links there too for products for recommendations. So people who want to try something and don't want to make an appointment, I mean, it's an individual thing. They're not ready yet. But when the ones that are ready, they come, and, we have some really great end results with our clients, and, it's wonderful. And we're building relationships too. It's not just I meet somebody and that's kind of it. There are a lot of people now that I consider really great acquaintances because of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really hope that everyone listening contacts you, or at least somebody like you, to get started on that healing journey, because there is no better time than the present, and early is always best.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And when people can make appointments with us that don't have to see us, we do it also through phone consults and whatnot too. So it's not just you have to be seen physically.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point too. Yeah, because I mean, I'm out of state, and that wasn't even an issue. The good thing is, for the labs and stuff, you could just send it to their house wherever they live, which is amazing.
We work with a couple really good labs so that everything is set up through a computer system, shipped directly to you. Directions are pretty clear on how to take on what you need to do. You ship back to the lab, and then your results get posted, you get notified, and then we schedule a consult so we can go over everything.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you on again and have more talks.
Likewise.
But thank you all for listening. And I'm going to leave Jennifer's details in the bottom caption as well, if you didn't get her email address before. So you'll have information on that. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.